ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तं
वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
ॐ सहना
ॐ सहना
भवतु
भवतु
सहनौ
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु
सह वीर्यं
वीर्यं
करवावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
विद्विषावहै।
विद्विषावहै।
ॐ
ॐ
शान्ति
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 शान्तिः।
शान्तिः।
We'll chant the Shantipat together. Om Bhadram
ॐ
Karune
कर्णैः
Vishyamadeva
शृणुयाम देवाः
Bhadram
भद्रं पश्येम्माक्षभिर्यजत्राः
Pashemakshaviryajatraः Hirangai Sustruvagunsastanoभिः
स्थिरैस्तनुभिः
Vyasema
व्यशेम
Deva Hitam
देवहितं यदायुः
Yadayuः Swasti na
स्वस्ति न
Indro
इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः
Vruddhashravः Swasti na
स्वस्ति न पूषा
Viश्vवेदाः
विश्ववेदाः
स्वस्ति
स्वस्ति
नस्तार्क्ष्यो
नस्ताक्ष्यो
अरिष्टनेमिः
अरिष्टनेमिः
स्वस्ति न बृहस्पतिर्दधातु
बृहस्पतिर्दधातु
ॐ
ॐ
शान्ति
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 शान्तिः.
शान्तिः।
Okay, so we'll just chant the full second khanda. तदेतत् सत्यं मन्त्रेषु कर्माणि कवयो
तदेतत् सत्यं मन्त्रेषु कर्माणि कवयोः
यान्यपश्यन्तानि त्रेतायां बहुधा सन्ततानि
यानि पश्यन्तानि त्रेतायां बहुधा सन्ततानि
तान्याचरथ नियतं सत्यकामाः
तान्याचरथ सन्नियतं सत्यकामाः
केशवः पन्था सुकृतस्य लोके
एष वः पन्थः सुकृतस्य लोके
यदा लेलायते ह्यर्चिः समिद्धे हव्यवाहने
यदा लीलायते हर्चिः समत्ते हव्यवाहने
तदाज्य भागवन्तरेण आहुतिः प्रतिपादयेत्
तथा च भाग अवन्तरेण आहुतिः प्रतिपादयेत्
यस्याग्निहोत्रमदर्शमपौर्णमासम्
यस्याग्निहोत्रमदर्शम् अपौर्णमासम्
आचातुर्मास्यम् अनाग्रयणम् अतिथिवर्जितं च
आचातुर्मास्यमनाग्रहणम् अतिथिवर्जितं च
अहुतम् अवैश्वदेवम् अविधिनाहुतम्
अहुतम् अवैश्वदेवम् अभिधनाहुतम्
आसप्तमांस्तस्य लोकान् हिनस्ति
आसक्तमांस्तस्य लोकान् हिनस्ति
काली कराली च मनोजवा च
काली कराली च मनोजवा च
सुलोहिता या च सुधूम्रवर्णा
सुलोहिता च धूम्रवर्णा
सुलंगिनी विश्वरूची च देवी
स्फुलिङ्गिनी विश्वरूची च देवी
लेलायमाना इति सप्तजिह्वाः
लीलायमाना इति सप्तजिह्वाः
एतेषु यश्चरते भ्राजमानेषु
एतेषु यश्चरते भ्राजमानेषु
यथा कालं चाहुतयो ह्याददायन्
यथा कालं चाहुतयो ह्याददायन्
तं नयन्त्येता सूर्यस्य रश्मयो
तं नयन्त्येता सूर्यस्य रश्मयो
यत्र देवानां पतिरेकोऽधिवासः
यत्र देवानां पतिरेकोऽधिवासः
एहे हिति तमाहुतयः सुवर्चसः
एयेति
तमाहुतयस्तु
वर्चसः
वर्चसः
सूर्यस्य रश्मिभिर्यजमानं वहन्ति
सूर्यस्य
सूर्यरश्मिर्यजमानं
रश्मिर्यजमानं
वहन्ति
वहन्ति
प्रियां वाचम् अभिवदन्तयो अर्चयन्त्यः
प्रियां वाचं वदन्तो चयन्त्यः
एष वः पुण्यसुकृतो ब्रह्मलोके
एषवः पुण्यसुकृतो ब्रह्मलोके
प्लवाहेते अधृढा यज्ञरूपाः
प्लवायेते अदृढा यज्ञरूपाः
अष्टादशोक्तम् अवरं येषु कर्म
अष्टादशोक्तम् अवरं येषु कर्म
एतच्छ्रेयो येऽभिनन्दन्ति मूढाः
एतच्छ्रेयो येऽभिनन्दन्ति मूढाः
एतच्छ्रेयो येऽभिनन्दन्ति मूढाः
एतच्छ्रेयो येऽभिनन्दन्ति मूढाः
जरामृत्युं ते पुनरेवाप्यन्ति
जरामृत्युं ते पुनरेवाप्यन्ति
अविद्यायामन्तरे वर्तमानाः
अविद्यायामन्तरे वर्तमानाः
स्वयं धीराः पंडितं मन्यमानाः
स्वयं धीराः पण्डितं मन्यमानाः
जगन्यमानाः पर्यन्ति मूढा
जगन्यमानाः पर्यन्ति मूढाः
अन्धेनैव नियमाना यथान्धाः
अन्धेनैव नियमाना यथान्धाः
अविद्यायां बहुधा वर्तमानाः
अविद्यायां बहुधा वर्तमानाः
वयं कृतार्था इत्यभिमन्यन्ति बालाः
वयं कृतार्था इत्यभिमन्यन्ति बालाः
यत् कर्मिणो न प्रवेदयन्ति रागात्
यत् कर्मिणो न प्रवेदयन्ति रागात्
तेनातुराः क्षीणलोकाश्च्यवन्ते
तेनातुराः क्षीणलोकाश्च्यवन्ते
इष्टापूर्तं मन्यमाना वरिष्ठम्
इष्टापूर्तं मन्यमाना वरिष्ठम्
नान्यच्छ्रेयो वेदयन्ते प्रमूढाः
नान्यच्छ्रेयो वेदयन्ते प्रमूढाः
नाकस्य पृष्ठे ते सुकृतेऽनुभूत्वा
नाकस्य पृष्ठे सुकृतेऽनुभूत्वा
इमं लोकं हीनतरं वाविशन्ति
इमं लोकं हीनतरं वाविशन्ति
तपश्रद्धेये ह्युपवसन्तरण्ये
तपश्रद्धेयुपवसन्त्यरण्ये
तपश्रद्धेये उपवसन्त्यरण्ये
तपश्रद्धेयुपवसन्त्यरण्ये
शान्ता विद्वांसो भैक्ष्यचर्यां चरन्तः
शान्ता विद्वांसो भैक्ष्यचर्यां चरन्तः
सूर्यद्वारेण ते विरजाः प्रयान्ति
सूर्यद्वारेण ते विरजाः प्रयान्ति
यत्रामृतः स पुरुषो ह्यव्ययात्मा
यत्रामृतः स पुरुषो ह्यव्ययात्मा
परीक्ष्य लोकान् कर्मचितान् ब्राह्मणः
परीक्ष्य लोकान् कर्मचितान् ब्राह्मणः
निर्वेदम् आया नास्त्य कृतः कृतेन
निर्वेदम् आयान्नास्त्य कृतः कृतेन
तद्विज्ञानार्थं स गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत्
तद्विज्ञानार्थं स गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत्
समीत्पाणिश्रोत्रियं ब्रह्मनिष्ठम्
समित्पाणिश्रोत्रियं ब्रह्मनिष्ठम्
तस्मै स विद्वानुपसन्नाय सम्यक्
तस्मै स विद्वान् उपसन्नाय सम्यक्
प्रशान्तचित्ताय शमान्विताय
प्रशान्तचित्ताय शमान्विताय
येनाक्षरं पुरुषं वेद सत्यम्
येनाक्षरं पुरुषं वेद सत्यम्
प्रोवाच तां तत्त्वतो ब्रह्मविद्याम्
प्रोवाच तां तत्त्वतो ब्रह्मविद्याम्
इति प्रथममुण्डके द्वितीयखण्डः
इति प्रथममुण्डके द्वितीयखण्डः
Okay, so I'm just muting all of you all. All right, so we will now start from the 7th mantra. So, Plavahyete Adrida Yajna Rupaha. Plava is a boat, and Pravahi, if you look at the breakup, it has to be Plavahi Yete Adrida Yajna Rupaha. So, Plava is a boat. He is indeed. Ete is these. Adrida is not firm, not dependable. Yajna Rupa, in the form of Yajna, Ashtadasha Uktam is said, Uktam is said to be manned by Ashtadasha, Ashtadasha 18, by 18 factors, and is also Avaram. So Avaram means inferior. Yeshu, on whom, Karma, action, Etat Shreyaha, this highest action, Yebhinandanti, these people praise, Mudaha, ignorant, Jara Mrityum, old age and death, Te Punar Eva Apiyanti, return to this again and again. Okay. So when you look at the actual mantra itself, we'll get the meaning, but briefly in learning English, he says this Plava, this boat, which is the Yajna, is an undependable one and is said to be manned by 18 supports, which depend upon lower karma. So these ignorant people, the Mudaha, who think of this as the highest, Etat Shrayo Yebinandanti. These people think of this karma as being the highest. What happens to them? Jara Mrityum Te Punarevapi Yanti. They return again and again to old age and death, meaning they return again and again to samsara. So if you remember, until the last verse, we were talking about the beneficial effects of Agnihotram done as Kamya Karma. Now here, the Acharya starts to list out the negative effects, the negative aspects of rituals which are done as Kamya Karma or Sakama Karma. So ultimately, the aim of the Upanishad is what? To discourage the use, to discourage the dependence upon Karma Kanda and encourage the movement to Jnana Kanda. So hence the Acharya here is criticizing those people who are using the rituals for Sakama purposes, for finite purposes. And he says all karma have dosha, right? All karma have three dosham, we know that. Karma by nature is what? Parichinnam indeed. So because Shankara says somewhere, yatha karma tatha phalam. As the karma, so is the phalam. And since karma by nature is limited, parichinnam itself, limited in space and limited in time, and therefore yatha karma, as the karma is limited in space and time, tata phalam. The phalam is also limited in space and time. And if Swarga is attained by karma, then Swarga itself is falling under this definition of parichinnam, and therefore Swarga is created in time, it will also be destroyed in time. And because your trips to Swarga are fueled by what? Your petrol is what? It is the punyam only. And all the punyam is limited itself, because punyam is dependent upon karma. Karma itself is limited. Nobody has unlimited punyam. So he says yajna rupaha. So all people and material. Yajna rupa basically is the rupa here indicates all the accessories required for a yajna. Form of yajna, everything that is involved. And therefore yajna rupa is a word which is used for indicating all the materials, the bricks, the wood, the ghee, everything, including the Chetanam part of it, including the priests and the Yajamanam himself. All of them are coming under the Yajna Rupa. All the Chetana, Achetana accessories, factors, which are necessary for the performance of the Yajna. That is the meaning of the word Yajna Rupaha. And he says, Ashtadasha Ukta. So this needs some explanation. So actually, I think we did this once earlier, but anyway. So in any Vedic Yajna, there are supposed to be 18 factors. Do you remember? Out of them, 16 are pujaris, are the priests. 4 priests representing each Veda. What are the other 2?
Karta.
Sorry?
Karta is one.
What is the Karta meaning?
Yajamana.
Yajamana.
Yeah.
And
his partner.
Yes, Yajamana and Yajamana Patni, the wife of the Yajamana. So that is why this we say that in our scriptures, no religious rituals are possible without the person being married. And therefore, 16 priests, 4 for each Veda, 1 Yajamana and 1 wife of the Yajamana, Yajamana Patni. So without that Patni, what is the importance of the Patni? She provides the infrastructure. She provides the home. She makes sure the offerings are there. She comes in at the start of the Yajna, and she is the one who gives permission to start the ritual. And because of this, Shastram says that 50% of all punyam generated in that Yajna, it goes to the Patni. Okay, 50% of all karma phalam, punyam, generated in the Yajna, it goes to the Patni. But what about any mistakes committed by the Yajamanam or his agents, the priests? So here the Patni does not share it. Okay, it's a very clean partnership. If the Patni gets 50% of the punyam, but all the papam 100% goes to the Yajamana. So it's a partnership loaded in favor of the Patni. Okay. And the word Patni is a very interesting one. In Panani Sutras, there is a derivation. He says, Patyur no yajna sanyogi. So yajna sanyogi. Patni is established. The what you call title of Patni is established through yajna sanyogam, a connection through the yajna only. Unless there is the yajna, the marriage yajna takes place. Then there is no connection. Until then, there is no connection between the man and the woman. The Patni comes into existence only through the medium of the yajna. Okay, so Shastram does not seem to think that court marriages make you husband and wife. The yajna is a must. And therefore, yajna, the Yajamanam and the Yajamana Patni. So this yajna sanyogam can be thought of as a connection between the Patni and the Pati, which enables that Pati, the poor fellow, it enables the poor fellow to perform yajnas. Without that connection, that person, that gentleman is not eligible to perform any yajnas. So without Patni, the Pati cannot have a religious life at all. And he says 18 parties are required, and that's why Ashtha Dasha Uktam. And in yajnas, we discussed again, in rituals, the Yajurveda priests are important. Yajurveda itself is important. The Yajurveda priests are called Yajurgana. The Rig Veda priests are called Hotrigana. The Samaveda priests are called Udgatragana. And the Atharvaveda priests are called what? Atharva Veda
Brahma.
Brahmagana. Okay. So each of the 16 is given a name that we'll not go into. It's too complex. It appears in the Shankaracharya's commentary, so we'll just avoid that. Each priest is given a particular name. And he says all these 18 factors, which means all these 16 priests plus the Yajamana Patni also, they are adrida. They are undependable. They are weak and they are fragile. So, he yete adrida plava. These 80 plava is a boat which is actually more like a raft. You know, you take a few wooden logs and tie them together. Especially if you're on an island and you don't have a proper factory and you want to get out, what do? You cut the trees, you get some sort of rope and you put them together and you have a raft. It's a very undependable raft, weak and fragile, to cross the ocean of samsara. That's why the word plava is used. And this plava can be safely used where? On a small lake or something where there's not too much risk and it's not too big. But it's not so for the ocean. So the Vedic karmas and pujas are, being compared to this raft. What is the indication? Just as this raft, as the plava, is not sufficient or not strong enough to cross the ocean. Similarly, karmas and Vedic karmas, Vaidika karmas and Vaidika pujas are also a raft, but they are not sufficiently strong to take you across the samsara sagara, ocean of samsara. So these Vedic karmas can help you avoid some situations, like going to a lower life or going to hell, as they call it, Naraka. Right? Because you need good karma to ensure that at least you don't land up as lower life forms. At least from Bhuloka upwards you should be going, right, in all your births. And for that you need good karma. For that good karma, Vaidika karmas and pujas are being prescribed, right? And they are, because of that, they will avoid you going to Naraka, to the lower regions, to lower lives, and therefore help avoid such temporary pain. And sufficient punyam can help you to get to heaven also, to Sarga also. But as we said earlier in Bhagavad Gita also, Kshine Punye Martya Lokam Vishanti. You will come back as soon as the punyam is exhausted. So Swarga Loka is also not permanent. And therefore, this Vaidika karmas, they may help you with such temporary things like avoiding pain by going to Naraka, getting some pleasure by going to Swarga, but they cannot help you cross the ocean of samsara. And that's why it's called plava, unsteady raft. And dependent on these 18 people are what? Avaram Yeshu karma. Inferior karma. They are inferior because they are dependent upon these 18 limbs. So all karma is inferior because these 18 finite factors of action are involved. And some of the rituals are very complex, okay? And they may take weeks to complete. But they are also called avaram, inferior. Because even if you are doing Nachiketa Homa, what is the benefit of Nachiketa Homa? You go to Swarga. Even if you do that major ritual in your life, even then you come back because it brings you back when the punyam is exhausted. And therefore they are called avaram, inferior. Now remember here that inferior avaram, the term is used for karma, and Shankara specifically says this term is used whenever karma is not backed up by upasana. Upasana and karma is superior to karma alone. So Vaidika karma, unless the dhyana slokas are done, unless upasana is also done, those karmas are considered as avaram karma. Okay. So you have to classify all Vaidika karma in two parts. One is called samanya karma or ordinary karma, and one is superior karma. So ordinary karma is only the karma. The superior karma is karma which is reinforced with upasana. That is why in a proper ritual, you will find that before the yajna actually starts, the dhyana slokas are chanted, and both the priest as well as the yajamanam should spend some time meditating on the deity who is the deity for the yajna. Sometimes you find the priest doing, but it's rare to find the yajamana doing. But ideally, both priest and yajamana should spend some time on upasana before you start the yajna itself. And therefore, it is called yajna anga upasana. This upasana becomes part of the yajna, becomes an angam. And because of this upasanam, that same ritual, that same homam will give you additional power. And therefore, this is called upasana sammuchita karma. Karma reinforced with upasana. Karma strengthened by upasana, backed up by upasana. That is why in any parayanam when you do, considering the parayanam as a Vedic ritual, you will find that all the parayanams begin with the Atha Dhyana. And of course, most of us, while chanting, we are in a hurry to come to the actual Parayanam part, and therefore we chant these slokas, the Dhyana slokas, without bothering about the meaning of the Dhyana slokas. But these Dhyana slokas are not meant for Parayanam. Parayanam is the main text. Dhyana slokas are by what you call the very name meant for what? Dhyana or Upasana. And in all these slokas, you will find that there are many, many descriptions of the Lord for whom Parayanam is being done. And once you do this, once you do the upasana before the karma or the ritual, then it is a upasana sahita parayanam. Parayanam with upasana. And this plain parayanam, unsupported by upasana, not accompanied by upasana, here is called avaram karma, inferior karma. They will not take us to Brahmaloka at all. You require karma backed by upasana to take you to Brahmaloka. Karma not backed by upasana is avaram karma. At the most, it can take you to the other Swargalokas, but not to Brahmaloka. That is the what the Shastram says. And therefore, look at the other words. Ye moodaha etat shrayaha. These deluded people, they do not understand the value of upasana. And therefore, they think that karma is shreyaha. So remember, shreyaha word is used for moksha. So they think that karma is the way for moksha. They don't understand. This karma is plava. It's like trying to use the raft to cross the ocean. So shreyaha is a word for moksha. So here it is saying that they don't understand that karma cannot give moksha. And whether karma is a karanam, is a cause for shreya or not, is the question we need to address. Can karma without upasana in any possible way give you moksha? We have to understand that karma cannot be the cause for moksha. Shreya karanam, karma can never be. But instead of coming to that conclusion, if this person, this buddha, the deluded person, he thinks that karma indeed will give moksha, and therefore Shastram says they are mudaha. So what is the result of this kind of karma? He says mudaha abhinandanti. Abhinandanti is rejoice. He is happy. The mudaha rejoices in the karma. Now remember here, we have to understand mudaha not necessarily as intellectually stupid, not necessarily as a fool. This buddha Shastra is referring to the person who might be an extremely intelligent person, and he might be a very big, in brackets, success in life. But if he does not see the limitations of karma, then he falls under the category of buddha. Because what does he do? he will keep on doing karma. He will not come to upasana at all. Not having come to karma and upasana, he will not be able to have chitta shuddhi. He will not come to jnanam at all. And therefore he keep on doing karma. And then what happens? Jara mrityum te punara eva apiyanti. They enter the cycle of jara and mrityu, disease and death, and rebirth. So apara vidya will bring you back to earth only. And therefore we should do karma only for spiritual growth. But this itself is a big problem, because these deluded people, some of them unfortunately become leaders, spiritual leaders also, right? Some people who have not understood the true meaning of the Shastram, they understand a little bit of it and they become leaders, spiritual leaders. So there is a story in Chandogya Upanishad about Indra and Virochana. So who is Virochana, by the way?
King of the Asuras of the Daitya.
King of the Asuras. There's a story about Virochana and Indra who went to Lord Brahmaji to understand, the spiritual path, the process of moksha. Actually, they went to ask what is Brahman. So the story goes that, I won't get into too much of it, I'll give the first part of it. The story goes that he taught them something, Brahmaji, and then told them to look into a bowl of water. And then he said, what do you see? So when you look into a bowl of water, what do you see? You see your own face, right? And they both saw their own face, and they decided that, Brahmaji was saying that this reflection of my face, which means I only am Brahman. So this Virochana decided that this Thula Shariram is Brahman. And therefore he went and preached to his own people. So what did he preach? That Thula Shariram is Brahman alone. So Indra did something else. That's another story. When we come to Chandogya Upanishad, we shall see. So the point is that Virochana misunderstood the teaching, and with the misunderstood teaching, he went back to the Asuras, to Asura Loka, and he taught that you must worship the body alone, for that is Brahman. And that has today come to be known as Charvaka. The Charvaka philosophy is basically that philosophy. The body is all there is. Okay, and Chandogya uses a very nice term. He says that Virochana Upanishad. Upanishad as interpreted by Virochana. Okay. Then, so what is the problem with such people who misunderstand the scripture and then they become teachers? So this is in the next verse. He says, Avidyayam antare vartamanaha swayam dhira panditam manyamanaha jaganyamanaha pariyanti mudaha andheneva niyamana athantaha. So avidyayam antare vartamanaha. Avidyayam antare vartamanaha. Vartamana existing or residing. Residing avidyayam antare, in the middle of avidya, steeped in ignorance. These people who have misunderstood the scriptures. But what is the tragedy? Swayam dhiraha panditaha manyamanaha. Swayam manyamanaha. They think themselves to be dhiraha, wise panditaha, learned people. And jaganyamanaha. In spite of doing so, they go round and round in samsara. Jaganyamanaha pariyanti. They go round and round in samsara. Mudaha. They are themselves deluded. Andhena eva. Niyamanaha yathanna. That's a simile. Just like the blind go round and round when they are being led by other blind people. In the same way, these people who listen to this, Mudaha Acharya, they are also going round and round in samsara. So these ignorant beings, in the middle of, they are residing in the middle of ignorance. They fancy themselves to be wise and learned. And because they are not so, they go around and round. They are oppressed, they're miserable. He says just like the blind being led by the blind. So here karma is being criticized. So whenever karma is criticized in Shastram, we have to understand properly. Karma is very necessary. Without karma, there is no chitta shuddhi possible. Without karma, there are no transactions possible. But here, any karma which is directly opposed to dharma, what will it give you? Papa. And therefore, Shastram thinks that karma which is dharma viruddha, opposed to dharma, it's an undesirable karma. And because of the consequences, that painful consequences of the papam generated, it is undesirable from that point of view also. On the other hand, karma which is in harmony with dharma brings pleasant results. But even if you do a comparison of these pleasant results with moksha, you will find that the dharmic karma phalam, the prayas as it is called, the pleasant consequences of good karma, they are also found to be severely wanting when it comes to moksha. So one has to understand criticism in this manner. Whenever Shastram criticizes karma, the purpose is to generate dispassion for all karma phalam which is anitya, which is temporary in nature. So criticizing of karma in Shastram, the purpose is to develop vairagyam for anitya phalam, dispassion for temporary consequences. It may be pleasant also, but it's temporary only. Now let's look at the words. Avidyayam antare vartamana. Right? Those who are steeped, residing in ignorance alone. And Shankara clarifies here that avidya should be taken to mean ajnanam as well as ajnana phalam. So ignorance as well as all products of ignorance. What is the product of ignorance? Main product of ignorance? From the Shastric angle only, from what we are studying. What is the main product coming out of ajnana?
Samsara.
Samsara is okay, but another word for that.
Moha.
No.
Ahankara, mamakara.
No, it is adhyasa. Okay, so adhyasa is what? It's an error. It's a superimposition. It's not something which is not there, which is mithya. And therefore, the primary product of avidya is mithya only. And therefore, he says, because of this, these people do not understand that Atma is akarta. And because Atma is akarta, it is therefore abhokta also. And therefore, from this misunderstanding, what happens? He says, I am karta, I am bhokta, and therefore I am a samsari. So this, the first one, not understanding Atma to be akarta and abhokta, is ignorance in the first sense. Avidya meaning ignorance. Ignorance of what? The nature of Atma. And in the second sense, the error caused by avidya is the statement that I am karta, I am bhokta, I am samsari. So there are two portions. The main idea of not understanding Atman and what has arisen from that error, which is what the adhyasa, the error that I am karta. The moment you say I am karta, I am bhokta is attached to that statement, and I am samsari is the consequence. Two forms of avidya. So we say avidya causes error. One has to understand the term avidya properly. Can we say that avidya can we say that avidya is the absence of jnanam?
There is no absence of jnana. We are all jnana swarupa.
Okay. But I'm asking in the context of the statement that ajnanam causes error.
Wrong understanding,
I beg your pardon?
wrong understanding or partial understanding.
So that's fine. See, there's one statement made. Ajnanam causes error. Okay. Avidyayam antare vartamana. This avidya, it causes error. Now, avidya is taken as karanam for error. And therefore, the question is, can this avidya be taken as absence of vidya? You have to logically say, why not? By now, you should have that logic ready. Avidya causes error, statement 1. Therefore, question is, can avidya be taken as absence of vidya? And if not, why not?
Something that is abhava cannot have a bhava karyam.
Excellent. If avidya is taken as absence of vidya, it is abhava, vidya abhava. Something which is abhava cannot have a, there is no karanam. When you say abhava is, something is absent, you are saying vidya is abhava, it's absent. Something which is absent, how can it have a product? Only a karanam can have a karya. Okay? So this is the logic here, that you cannot say that vidya is absence of, avidya is absence of vidya. Because an absence of something cannot cause a product, cannot have a karyam. Only something which is bhava rupa, something which has existence, can cause a product. And therefore, if something has to cause the error, that something has to exist. Hence, avidya is bhava rupa, not abhava rupa. Avidya is existent. Vidya is an existent entity, not absence of jnana. This is the point being driven here. Avidya cannot said to be jnanam not being there, vidya not being there. Avidya has to be taken as a very positive entity, existing entity, bhava rupa, and therefore only it can cause avidya, which is all vidya based error, samsara, which is also bhava rupa. This is a discussion arising out of whose notes? Shankara, obviously. Okay. Then he says, Swayam dhiraha panditam manyamanaha. So Swayam, Shankara says, such people think that they are, he uses a term, vidita veditavyaha, knowing all that there is to be known. All knowing the thing they are. And they are pandits, scholars, the thing. So dhiraha panditaha manyamanaha. Manyamana means they think. Swayam, they think themselves to be very wise people, knowing everything. They think that they know all the various forms of karma. And not only that, they have analyzed the Shastram and they think that Shastram tells you that karma gives moksha, and therefore their conclusion is that karma will indeed lead to moksha. They think of themselves as learned, and therefore they will not go to a teacher, an acharya, and they will not learn. So panditam. Panditam is a one who has got panda. Panda is wisdom or jnana. But he is a mudaha because jaganyamana. So jaganyante is to be wounded. Okay, so Shankara defines jaganyamana as a person who has been affected by jara, vyadhi, etc. Old age and disease, etc. Undesirable events. He is a mudaha because he is affected by them. And what happens? Pariyanti. He wanders endlessly in this world. Without knowing, this world cannot give me security, it cannot give me peace. Because the world is finite. How can a finite karanam give you something which is infinite? And therefore, he is battered by the world, by the waves of the punyam and papam in the ocean of samsara. He's battered. They knock you about here and there. And this person is guided by whom? He goes to his own intellect. And intellect is already blind. What is the tragedy? Not knowing this delusion, not knowing that they have understood everything wrongly, not knowing that the intellect is confused. They think they are wise, and therefore, andhena eva niyamana yatha andaha. They go round and round in the world. They become spiritual leaders because of their own firm conviction that they are right. Conviction is wrong, okay, but they are convinced that they are right, and therefore they teach. And remember that, if one repeatedly says something which is untrue, again and again and again, you say something untrue, sooner or later, at least some people will start believing it. Constant repetition leads to some sort of conviction that what is being said is true, right? What you have to see is not how many times it has been repeated. It has to have the support of yukti or shruti, logic or shastra. For us Vedantins, we don't accept a statement made by anybody, even if said 1,000 times, unless on our own analysis, we are able to see that there is shruti support of the Veda is there, Upanishad is there, or there is support of logic. This is what is our parampara. Okay, now this particular person, because he's repeating again and again the same thing, he gets a bunch of shishyas also. And this is called the Andha Parampara. Andha because there is neither Yukti support nor Shruti support. And such teachers will talk about things which cannot be verified by your Indriyas. It cannot be verified through your Yukti, logic also. And it is definitely not there in Shruti also. But these people will talk about it. And if you question them, they will say, you will understand only when you reach the place where I am there. Once sufficient practice is there, sufficient time has been spent, then only will you understand. So these kind of teachers are many. And unfortunately, they have thousands and thousands of disciples also. But for a Vedantin, we should ensure that it does not go against Shruti, it does not go against logic, it does not go against experience. Any statement made by a teacher which is against logic, against Shruti, against experience, it cannot be accepted. Okay, there is a difference in saying that it should not be against logic, which means what? It should not be illogical, right? What cannot be verified, remember, it need not be against logic. And this is a argument used by many people about the existence of Ishvara. They say that we cannot prove that Ishvara exists and therefore it does not exist. This is the kind of thing we're talking about here. When someone is not able to prove that Ishvara exists, that is simply it. You are not able to prove the existence of Ishvara. Remember that not being able to prove the existence of something or some entity is not the same as disproving the existence of that entity. Not being able to prove that Ishvara exists is not proof that Ishvara does not exist. This is the difference of being illogical and being against logic. Not being able to prove something through logic is not the same as being illogical. I hope that is clear, okay? The big difference between something which cannot be proved through logic and something which is against logic. So this clarity of thought all Vedantists should have. And therefore, if you see, if Swarga is the result of Punyam and Punyam is the result of Karma and Karma is finite, then what is the conclusion about Swarga?
Swarga is also finite.
Swarga is also infinite. And therefore, if you say that Swarga is infinite, that is, it goes against logic, right? But if you say prove that Swarga is there, that cannot be proved using logic. This is the difference. Two statements. Swarga cannot be proved through logic. Saying Swarga is infinite is against logic, is illogical. So this kind of hair splitting, all Vedantins must learn to do. Okay. Then andhena eva niyamana yatha andaha. Like the blind follows being led by the blind teacher. The buddhi is very much alive and responsive for all of us, in fact. In respect to all material things, our intellect mostly functions well. But when it comes to trying to examine the limitations of karma, then we are all blind, because we are all guided by our likes and dislikes, by our raga dvesha. And therefore, intellect should be very, very keen. We normally say that every human intellect, okay, I'm specifying human, because some sort of buddhi is there in all animals also. Okay, willpower or not there, different matter. But human intellect is subject to 6 major classes of defects. Shastram says the first one is ajnana, major defect, lack of knowledge. Next one is samshayaha, where jnanam is there, okay, but it is doubtful. Remember, ajnanam, no knowledge is there. Samshaya, knowledge is there, but knowledge with doubt. Samshaya sahita jnanam is samshaya. No jnanam, nil jnanam is ajnanam. The third one is viparyaya, wrong knowledge. And here, this knowledge is doubtlessly wrong knowledge. You have no doubt that it is knowledge, but it is wrong knowledge. So viparyaya, remember, the person who is having this wrong knowledge, he never doubts that his knowledge is wrong. He knows his knowledge is correct. Viparyaya, wrong knowledge. Pramada, negligence. Then apatu karnatva. So apatu means a deficiency, a natural deficiency. Karanam is an instrument. So apatu karanatvam means the intrinsic limitation of every karanam that we have, or every instrument that we have. Like, take the eyes. Okay? The eyes, even the best of eyes, they can see only at a certain distance and not beyond a certain range. So we say that the visible spectrum which eyes can function is between 400 to 700 nanometers. That's the frequency in which eyes can see. Beyond this, you have infrared, which eyes cannot see, and on the other side, you have X-rays and gamma rays, also which eyes cannot see. So these are called the apatu karnatva, the intrinsic limitation of the instrument of knowledge, of the pramana. And the last one is called vipralabdhihi. Vipralabdhihi is your source of information is subjective. That means you can have different interpretations to the same fact. You can have one fact and two people can give different interpretations. Like today, if you watch, for example, you watch NDTV and Republic TV, right? The same event will be there. They'll be reported, conclusion drawn by NDTV and by Republic TV completely opposite, based on their own prejudices. So this is subjectivity. Okay, and every human intellect, says Shastram, has got this subjectivity. The only source with no subjectivity is Ishvara. And because of that, Shastram is not subjective. And because of that, Jnani is not subjective. Every other human intellect is subject to subjectivity, subject to this viparalabdhi. And therefore, if you want to get non-subject to knowledge, you have to find a jnani. And this human intellect is what I keep in the forefront as finding my destination in life. And if I'm relying solely upon that intellect and Shastram has no role to play, then andhenaiva antaha. You are like the blind being led by the blind. I should therefore take the Shastram as my guide. The Shastram will be interpreted for me by my Acharya. And this is called Guru Shastra Upadeshaha. And Shastram gives this a particular name. Nirdushta Pramanam. Free from all these 6 defects. Okay. So we'll take a small break in case any questions are there.
Acharya, what were these 6 points? They were defects of what?
Of the intellect, of the human intellect.
And could you just repeat the Sanskrit word for each one, please?
Ajnanam,
Which is the lack of knowledge.
samshayaha, doubtful knowledge.
Right.
Viparyaya, wrong knowledge, but the jnata has no samshaya there. He thinks it is correct knowledge without any doubt. So doubtless knowledge, which is wrong. So you have to word it correctly, not doubtlessly wrong knowledge, but doubtless knowledge, which is wrong. Then pramada, negligence. Then apatu karnatvam. Apatu is limitation. It's a natural limitation, intrinsic limitation. Karanam is an instrument of knowledge. Pramanam for your, but in this case, your eyes, ears, all those things. And then vipra labdhihi. Getting something which has got the potential for multiple interpretations. Again, because of the subjectivity of your intellect.
So out here, the negligence part, the 4th one is basically that something might be available to you, but you're not making any use of it.
You are not making the effort at all.
Okay. Thank
These are
you.
supposed to be human intellect defects. Defects of the human intellect.
Thank you, Acharya.
Regarding the logic, what you were saying that certain concepts are beyond logic, I think Swami Chinmayananda coined a term for it. He said there's logical, there is illogical, and there is illogical, which is something that is out of the scope of logic.
Yeah, so what we need, see, out of the scope of logic means that you cannot use logic either to prove or disprove.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean it's illogical.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, like you, for example, any atheist you can talk to, what is the only argument he can give you against the existence of the Lord?
There's no proof for
There's
it.
no proof. And he uses that statement to say that therefore he does not exist. So he uses a statement of not being able to prove as proof of non-existence. That itself is illogical.
Yeah, it's incomplete. It's only half of the story.
You have to prove that he does not exist. And that you cannot prove why? Because all your pramanam extends only to anatma. The one who is the user of the pramanam, he is the Paramatma. How can the user disprove himself? So that is why when you talk to people who say there is no God, you have to first say, what do you define the Lord as? And then somehow, if you can bring him to the argument that the Lord is defined as consciousness, what should you? He has already lost the argument. How?
Because even to say there is no God, you have to be conscious.
He has to be conscious.
And Raviji, that 6 defects of the intellect, the pramada, can you explain again the negligence?
Pramada is negligence. Supposing you do not make the effort to verify the knowledge or to go to a appropriate source of knowledge, and whatever you get, you accept that knowledge. The Samshaya fellow, let's take all one by one. Ajnanam fellow has got no knowledge. He's not bothered. Okay, so he's there. The Samshaya fellow has got some knowledge, but he is not very sure the knowledge is right or not. The Viparyaya fellow has complete pramada because he's got knowledge, but he's very sure that the knowledge is correct, though the knowledge is wrong. The pramada fellow may or may not have knowledge. It is immaterial to him because he doesn't make the effort of verification at all. Nor he does not say it is right knowledge. He does not say it is wrong knowledge. He does not want to make the inquiry at all. The pramada. He is not a seeker at all.
It seems like this one is a bit of the Viparyaya as well as the last one.
If
I
you see
mean,
around you, there are many people like who
They
accept
don't-
things exactly as they are. They are not bothered to inquire. Is it right? Is it wrong? The reality doesn't bother them, whether it's real or unreal. They don't want to make the effort at all. It is not that they've inquired and then accepted. It's just, aisa hi hai bhaiya. That's one common thing is all Indians are like this. We say, no? We are like this only.
kind of indifference.
It's indifference. You are not bothered. You don't want to make the effort at all. I am good as I am. It can be a very enviable position, okay? Where nothing bothers you.
It's an I don't care that is steeped in ignorance, however.
I don't care, arising from ignorance and the laziness not to want to make an effort to dispel that ignorance.
So again, Acharya, it's the first one. The lack of knowledge is not really the lack of knowledge, but not having access to it, right? Because the jnanam is there.
Yeah,
But-
not having access to it. Like many people don't know, like everybody knows I am. Nobody in this world, if you ask him, are you there? They'll say, yes, I am, right? If you ask me, I'm not going to say I'm not. But what that I is, they're not bothered. So that ajnanam is the fact that I have accepted my apparent body, mind, sense complex as myself. Because that's all that I know. That is, I've seen this since the day I was born. I've got a body, I've got a mind. My parents have a body, they've got a mind. So that is me. So that's ajnana. Because though you know that you are, nobody has told you that what you are.
Right.
Somebody said once very nicely, I am, in the statement I am, there is no problem. You add an adjective to that or noun to that, and then all problems start.
But it's not a problem if you say I am Brahman.
I am Brahman is I am.
That is not a problem. Yeah.
You don't have to say I am Brahman. You say
Yes.
I am.
Yeah. The third thing isn't necessary.
Nothing, not necessary at all.
Acharya, also the last one, the Vipralabdhi. So, one is that all of this is very subjective to our own understanding. So if one, sort of undertakes the understanding on one's own, then there is this little scare of being our understanding being limited to our interpretation of it.
Yeah.
And therefore, obviously, one has to go to an acharya. But again, there also it is similarly subjective. It's the Vipralabdhi of the other person.
That is why we say that is, the acharya who goes strictly by Shastram.
Right.
We say that he's going strictly by Ishvara. Ishvara is a source of no subjectivity at all.
Right.
So while here, I have an interesting question for you. When I say that I am consciousness itself, does not the use of the word consciousness imply that there is something which is not conscious? You take the definition of Brahman. Okay, now it's a very common thing in Shastram that there is something called Tathastha Lakshanam and Swarupa Lakshanam. I hope you guys are familiar with this, yeah. Are you? ADTC people?
Not really.
Can you repeat, Raviji?
Tathastha Lakshanam and Swarupa Lakshanam.
The original nature and the scene,
No,
the
no.
nature that is seen.
Let me tell you. Supposing you are, let us say I come down to your house and I park my car somewhere. Okay, and now I phone you up and say I'm here. And then you say, where are you? Then I'll say there are 10 cars parked here. So their car with the, deep blue color with one, let us say some book on top of the car, which I have kept. That is my car. Okay. This is called Tathastha Lakshana. Using a temporary feature, which is what the book on the car. That temporary feature will not be there all the time. So the book on the car is being used by you to identify my car. But once you come to the car, once you have seen the car, then you know what? You know the car and you know the car number. Right? So next time if the car number, you go by the car number, you don't need the book. The car number is intrinsic feature of the car. The book is an incidental feature of the car. The incidental feature to identify that is called Tathastha Lakshanam. The incidental feature is called Tathastha Lakshanam. The intrinsic feature is called Swarupa Lakshanam. Why is it important in the definition of Ishvara? Ishvara as Jagat Karta. Is it Tathastha or is it Swarupa?
Tatastha.
Why?
Because we are taking him as an example to see that this is consciousness, but everything is conscious.
No.
Because world is temporary.
Absolutely. Jagat is not permanent, right? There are times when Jagat is in Pralayam. Even then, Ishvara has to be identified. At that point of time, you cannot say Jagat Karta. You cannot say Shrishti Karta. You cannot say Shrishti, Laya Karta also. You cannot say Sthiti Karta also. Neither Shrishti, Sthiti or Laya Karta is when world is not there. Therefore, that Tathastha Lakshanam will not apply to the time frame when there is no world. And therefore, it is called temporary feature to identify Ishvara. And therefore, in Shastram, we say that Satchitananda is the Swarupa Lakshanam of Ishvara. Brahman, basically. Brahman is Satchitananda because it is Swarupa Lakshanam. It is the very nature itself. So my question was, I went into this because Tathastha and Swarupa you should know. Okay, it comes very often in Shastram. So just remember, Tathastha is a incidental feature by which you identify something. Swarupa is the permanent nature, the intrinsic nature by which you identify something. Like the book on the car was Tathastha. The number of the car was intrinsic, Swarupa. Now my point is, when you say Sat, are you not implying there is non-Sat? When you say Chit, are you not implying there is non-Chit?
But again, Acharya, it boils down to at which, at a Vyavaharika level or at a Paramarthika level.
Wonderful. Remember that even when you say that Satchitananda is Brahman, it is from the Vyavaharika level alone. From the Paramarthika level, there are no words at all. The moment you use any word, there is a contrasting, idea in effect. Unless the contrast is there, the word itself has no meaning. Good has no meaning unless there is bad. Hot has no meaning unless there is cold. Consciousness has no meaning unless there is matter, inert. Existence has no meaning unless there is non-existence.
So you're saying every word excludes other words.
Yes.
And so there's a limitation.
There's a limitation. And therefore, if you really want to describe Brahman, yatho vacho nivartante, that's what it means. Words do not reach him at all. When somebody says Satchitananda, you must always remember that Satchitananda is the definition of Brahman, all right. But from the Vyavaharika angle, from Paramarthika angle, there is no definition at all. You cannot use any words to to define them. Deep, no?
Yeah, this is nice.
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
a question
Yeah.
about that intellect thing only that we were discussing, the six.
Yes.
You said that Ishvara is the one who has no subjectivity, is not biased in any way, so
Yeah.
he must be the source. But even to kind of access this Ishvara or Shastra, I need to use my limited intellect to, make a choice that I will choose this Acharya or something like that, right?
Mm.
So, and still that limited intellect is subject to the defects.
Yes. That's why we say there is a role of prarabdha when you are getting the appropriate teacher.
Seems like some kind of loophole.
That is
Constantly going round and round.
no, that prarabdha, if you don't have, you will not come to Shastra. Or you will come to, one of the, we have so many types of spiritual teachers in this world, right? There are,
It's like
you
the
can't really
intellect.
rule out. You have to accept that certain amount of good karma you must have had done to bring you along.
Agreed, but it's like the intellect has to examine and trust itself or doubt itself, and it's just kind of.
Yeah, like, why do we say, like, why do all of us trust, say, SPG? Can you put that into words?
Because everything he says is consistent and makes sense.
Yes. So there's two things. The first is you are using an intellect, that whatever he's saying makes sense to me. And the second is there is a reputation, no? If you ask 100 people, and all say, yeah, he's great. It's like going to a doctor. How do you choose a doctor? You're not a medical student, so you don't know a doctor. What is a good doctor? So you go by reputation. First you go by the reputation, and then you go by a personal experience with the doctor. The same thing here. First you go by reputation, and then you go by personal experience.
Acharya, this reputation thing is a very dangerous one. Huh?
Yeah, I was about to say that his consistency is there, because any question you ask him from any text and any this thing, he can fit it into the framework in a very consistent way
Yes,
throughout.
In the Kali Yoga, reputation is a very difficult one, especially.
that I agree. But reputation is the first step. It will take you to a person. After that, whether it sort of fits in with whether you like it or not, whether it goes to your heart or not, that is what is required. And as Meda says, it's very important. Any question you ask him, can he fit it into the scriptural framework and tell you? That's what gives you the confidence, He has the answer to every question. That's the confidence level. And those of you who teach, you know that, right? That when you are able to answer questions consistently, that builds the confidence in the student also. And you can answer consistently only when you are sure of yourself. When you have studied and studied and studied and questioned yourself hundreds of times over. That he must have also done. Okay. So we have 15 minutes. Should we stop here or should we do one more? Do we have enough time to do one more? I don't think so. We should probably take it as some Q&A session now. So let us hear from people who have not talked so far. Priyanka, you're all Jnani now. You don't have any questions.
No, sir. I just need to listen to this maybe 2-3 more times, and then it will get easier.
Actually, I want you to start teaching also, Priyanka.
Hopefully soon, sir. I just feel like I need to know a little more.
I think that feeling never goes away.
Confidence. If you wait to learn everything, you'll never start teaching. Shall I tell you the story of how I started teaching Hatha Yoga? I used to go to Trivandrum Center. Sandeep was the, what do you call, boss over there. And I went and I was preparing myself. Someday I'll be confident enough to teach. Someday I'll be confident enough to teach. And so I didn't ask him. I told myself that when I'm going to be confident enough to teach, on that day, I will teach. So one day, as usual, I went there, and then suddenly the door opened. Sandeep came and said, "Ravi sir, today your turn." And he went off. That's how I started. I wasn't sure at all, but I started. That's how you start.
So Acharya, you need to do the same thing with Priyanka one day.
That's
then.
not a very good idea. Like, you know,
You should.
class, and then Ravi is like, okay, Priyanka, your turn.
Okay. All right. So
Raviji, I have one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a question. It's not. I don't know how to frame this. So, what we call reality is basically what is commonality, right? Like we call somebody deluded, like not in the shastric deluded, just a general delusion. When that person, is doesn't conform to our views of reality. Like if somebody
Yes.
says a leaf is blue, we say you are
Yes.
deluded,
Yes.
because for us the commonality is that the leaf is green.
But you are
So
ignoring the fact that his eyes may be defective. You may be actually seeing the leaf as blue.
yeah, so exactly, this was kind of the doubt, that then what defines reality and delusion? Because when we look at Shastra, it is not when the Jnani says, I see non-difference or something, that is not a commonality for everybody, because majority don't see that.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't know how to frame this question, like what defines this delusion and reality line, and how can we trust Shastra or trust Pramanam, the Pratyaksha Pramanam?
Pratyaksha Pramanam, you cannot trust too far, okay? The very first example we can give you is the example of the rising sun. You
Yeah.
know the sun does not rise, but every day your eyes tell you that it rises. So therefore, when you take absolute Pramanam, in case of, let us say, Anatma, you will take science. In case of Atma, you will take Shastra. And if somebody, of course, science also is relative at any point of time, right? At some point of time, people used to say that everything goes around the earth. So that is also relative. Now science says that, okay, we go around the sun. And you're taking that as the absolute truth. Somewhere you have to draw the line. But Pramanam, since it is, see, the problem with all these other, the Anatma Pramanam is all of them are born from human intellect. And since Shastram is not taken to be born of human intellect, you say Shastram is Nirdushtam, without any defects. And therefore, taking Shastram as an absolute frame of reference is okay. When we say deluded, we are going to say in relationship with what Shastram says. So Shastram says that, Brahman is this. And you say that I think Brahman is, body, mind complex, like Virochana said. That is delusion. So that delusion term, Mudaha term, Shastram uses only in terms of Shastric statements.
But everybody, I mean, the majority are deluded that way. Only the Jnani is not deluded, and we say, okay, the reality is different, that's why. But I mean, I know that several Jnanis across the ages, like thousands, have verified the same thing. They say the same thing again and again. And, yet it's like.
No, so what? You're coming back to the same old thing. Do you
Yeah.
trust Shastram or not? Your trust in Shastram has to be implicit. The only thing you can say about Shastram is that I won't question the words, but I can question the interpretation. But the words you can never question. That if Shastram says Ishvara is there, Ishvara is there. But the point is, what is that Ishvara? That is a question of interpretation. So Shastram says what is Ishvara, like in the 7th chapter of Gita, very extensive description of Ishvara, higher and lower natures. The day when a person says, Shastram says this, and I have understood through my Acharya, I cannot find, see, it's not blind, okay? You have to say, I cannot find a loophole in Shastram's word because it is there in Shastram, so Shruti is okay. I cannot find a logical way of disproving, so it's not against logic. My own experience does not contradict what it says. These three things are the basis for your implicit trust in Shastra. Anywhere where Shastram does not conform to either logic or to experience, you have to disregard that statement. You have to take it as arthavada, meant for exaggeration. Like there's a statement in Chandogya. I think I told you guys that a thief goes in front of a king. Did I tell you the story?
Yeah, like last week or last to last week.
Yeah. So that thing, no, that where it says that yes, your hand will burn, that you can take as arthavada, yes, because your experience will contradict that. Whether you're an honest man or a dishonest man, that hot rod will burn your hand. So such statements you don't accept, but the other statements when the Swarga is there, okay, that you accept provisionally. Why provisionally? In Vyavaharika. Vyavaharika, all these statements are true. They have no meaning when you shift your focus to Paramarthika. But Paramarthika, when you're looking at Paramarthika, then the whole world disappears, right? Your Veda disappears, your Ishvara disappears, you disappear, only Brahman remains. So there is no real question of doing any of the analysis in Paramarthika. All analysis is only in Vyavaharika. Vyavaharika, Ishvara is there, Jagat is there, you are there.
Yeah, this intellect is a strange thing. On one hand, I know it's defective, and on the other hand, I have to trust only this to give me the
That
words
is why
of.
you refine it. You refine it and refine it. That's all.
Acharya, this is the point number 2 in the defects of human intellect that you spoke of.
See, that's the strangest part about all this, You are using something which is defective to find that which is not defective. But that is all that is given to us. Luckily, we have got Shastra, which is not defective.
Acharya, I have a question related to Shastram if you have time.
Yeah.
So when we say Vedika Shastra, we mean the Shruti and the Smritis, right?
No. Shastram, yes. When you say Shastram, it means everything. Shruti, Smriti, Puranas.
Right. Well, Puranas which come into the Smritis part of it.
Yeah, and it also means Prakarana Grantha. All that. It also means Nyaya Grantha, Dharma Sutras. All these are part of a Shastra.
So Acharya, my question is then, there are the Yoga Shastras, right, which are considered yogic texts, which includes the, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which came in later on.
Yes.
And what are called the Agama Shastras, which are your Gheran Samhita, Shiva Samhita, etc., etc. Where does that fit into this picture, if at all?
They are all Shastram, yeah.
Right.
So the point is that how you interpret them is the question.
But Acharya, are they considered Vedic Shastras?
No, they're not considered Vedic. Vedic Shastras, you are only talking about.
So they're not part of Shruti, not part of Smriti.
No.
Yeah.
They're separate Shastras. They're all part of Shastra. There's a huge list of Shastra, right?
Right.
That all falls under that. But Kundalini Yoga, for example, there's a whole book on Tantra. That you don't take that as only the Hatha Yogis take it as Shastra. When you are in that thing, they will tell you that you disregard Vedanta because it's useless.
Right.
In fact, I don't know if you know, one of the biggest schools in Bombay, the yoga what is it called? Yoga school, right? What is it called?
Institute.
Yoga
Yeah,
Institute.
Santa Cruz Yoga Institute.
They go entirely by Yoga Shastras, Patanjali, and they disregard Vedanta. In fact, I don't know if Nataraji remembers that when we had the inspection or affiliation with that, I think one
Yes.
of their people had come.
Chitra,
Yeah,
Chitra Parikh. Yeah.
Parikh. She very specifically told me, I hope you are not teaching Vedanta yet. I kept a straight face.
Right. Well, that's why our school is called Yoga Vedanta. So put a foot on both sides.
So my question, Acharya, is that is there a differentiation? Doesn't one lead to the other, and aren't they interconnected? And what is the relation? And or is there none? And should one be negated, or what?
No, Vedanta says that any discipline you follow, apart from Jnanam, is for Chitta Shuddhi only. So we don't disregard anything. You can do Kundalini Yoga, you can do Hatha Yoga, you can do any type of yoga. It will take you only to Chitta Shuddhi. For Adhikari, for all these Shastram is different from for the Adhikari for Jnanam. The Adhikari for all these Shastram is converted into a Adhikari for Jnanam by the use of any other Shastra. That's the process. You can be Adhikari for Kundalini Yoga. Ultimately, you should be converted into Jnana Adhikari.
But I think that what we witness is that everyone gets stuck within those places and then they don't move on.
That's the interpretation problem.
Right.
And once you get stuck in those places, then you are, you stick to your viewpoint that is the only way.
Right.
And then there's hassle.
Raviji, Shankaracharya ji has also written a interpretation of Yoga Sutra, right? Do we have it? It's not available anymore.
I'll try to figure out.
He has written a commentary on Yoga Sutras, I think.
Yeah, let me see. I can
I
figure out.
think he's written a commentary on Raja Yoga, and it's pretty much just Advaita.
Yeah, in fact, Yoga Sutras can be interpreted from an Advaitic angle. And one of my favorite projects, which I don't know when I'll do it, is to do that Yoga Sutra from the Advaitic angle. But, before Rashmiji starts jumping on me, let me say, Rashmiji, after a long time. Not
Yes,
yet.
waiting for that,
Not
Acharya.
yet. I have to finish all this first, all your Upanishads and all that. Then
That will be a long time. Long wait.
okay, long time, no problem.
So we can start on Fridays.
I think you're the only one interested in that. Most people were.
I think everybody else is. I don't know why you don't say you people are not interested.
I would
No?
be interested because a lot of Yoga Sutra questions keep coming, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
tough by myself to interpret.
See, I'm
in
not the
Advaita.
only one.
I have a what they call vision of where I'm going. I need to finish teaching all the Upanishads, at least 9, 10 of them, then the Brahma Sutras, some of the Prakarana Granthas, and then we can look at Yoga Sutras. I need to start teaching basically for my own clarity, okay? Teaching gives you clarity. Okay, anyway, thank you so much. We'll meet next Saturday. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.
Thank you, Acharya ji.
Om Namaः Shivaya. Thank you.
Thank you. Acharya.